girls, this is your comprehension video, and I will be reading to you the story Brave Bessie, which is your selection test this week. Now, many of you have your books at home, so I want you to get those out and you can read along with me. You can just pretend that I'm the TV screen and read it like we read in school, read along. If you do not have your reading book at home, you can get on connected.mcgraw-hill.com and log into your account, and you can read it as an ebook on the computer, or you can just watch this video a couple of times so that you're familiar with the story and ready for your selection test. Okay, so I'm going to hold the camera above the page and read you the story about Brave Bessie and then ask you a couple questions at the end. Genre, biography. Remember, a biography is a true story about someone who really lived and what they did. It's a story about their life. Our story is called Brave Bessie, written and illustrated by Eric Velasquez. Oh boy, that's a hard one for me. That's when I wish we had the computer to read it to us. Essential question: what do heroes do? Twice a year, a library wagon would stop in front of Bessie Coleman's little house in Texas. Bessie's mom would rent books for her 12 children to read. Bessie loved to read about Booker T. Washington and Harriet Tubman. They were her heroes. Bessie daydreamed of being someone special like them. Okay, I wanted to show you the page. Bessie knew that school was important. She walked 4 miles each day to get to school and 4 miles home. She practiced reading to her little brothers and sisters. She practiced her numbers by checking the money her family got for picking cotton. Bessie scrimped and saved enough so she could go to college. She went to college at 18 but left after only a few months. She could not afford to stay in school. But Bessie was not ready to give up on her dreams. She decided to move to Chicago. Her brothers Walter and John lived there. It was a big and exciting city where people's dreams came true. Bessie soon got a job at a barber shop. Bessie enjoyed listening to John tell stories about French lady pilots in World War I. Bessie had never heard of a lady pilot. The more Bessie thought, the more she liked the idea. Bessie knew she could learn to fly too. Bessie quickly discovered how hard it would be to become a pilot. In the 1920s, there were rules about who could learn to fly. Most people wouldn't teach someone with Bessie's skin color how to fly. Bessie did not agree with the rules, but she could not find anyone to teach her to fly. The question on this page is, what happened after Bessie left college? This is our sequence skill. So I go back and I reread about college, and so there's the word college. And I keep reading that same paragraph and find the word left. And now I have to keep reading to find out what happened after she left college. Did you find it? I did too. It says she decided to move to Chicago, and if we continue reading, she got a job at a barber shop and decided she wanted to become a lady pilot. Boys and girls, I'd like to point out a vocabulary word. It is the word scrimped. That's not a word we hear very often. So let's use context clues to figure out what it means. Context clues means use the sentence that it's in to figure out the meaning. Bessie scrimped and saved enough so she could go to college. Scrimped and saved. Well, I know save means to keep hold of your money, but scrimped, So I think scrimped means she didn't spend very much money and she saved it so that she could go to college. So I think scrimped means to not spend money. Here's a picture of the page. Notice that Bessie is on a boat and she's saying goodbye to the Statue of Liberty. Let's read. One day, Bessie met a very important man who worked at a newspaper. She asked him if he knew anyone that could teach her how to fly a plane. He told Bessie to go to France. That is where she had heard of lady pilots. He told her it would be a lot of work, but Bessie was determined to succeed. She took classes and learned to speak French. She saved her money and was finally able to buy a ticket to France. Bessie sailed to France on a steamship. She had never been on a ship before. It was big and noisy. The ocean was windy and rough. Bessie was a little scared being on a big ship all by herself. She reminded herself that she was on her way to being somebody special. The trip took 9 long days to sail across the Atlantic Ocean. Bessie stared out at the water, waiting to see land. Finally, Bessie reached France. Soon she found a school that would teach her how to fly a plane. After years of hard work, Bessie was ready for her first flying lesson. First, Bessie had to study how to inspect a plane. This plane had wings made of wood and cloth. Bessie had to check the cloth wings for any tears. She also had to check the propeller. After a few lessons, Bessie climbed into the back of the plane and her teacher climbed into the front. The propeller whirled and the engine chugged. After a running start, the plane took off. Bessie gripped the controls as she took to the air. Her cheeks were stinging from the cold wind, but Bessie was grinning. Bessie had to walk miles and miles to the flying school each day, just like she walked to school as a child. Bessie practiced how to take off and how to land. She learned all the words for planes and flying, in English and in French. Finally, Bessie became the first African-American woman to earn a pilot's license. People called her an aviatrix, the name for a lady pilot. That meant she was truly someone special. Now, this is a biography. It is about a real person. So there is Bessie, a real picture of her. And this is her pilot's license. Pretty cool, huh? The question for this page says, why does the author compare Bessie's walk to flying school with her walk to school as a child? So when we reread up here, Bessie had to walk miles and miles to the flying school each day, just like she walked to school as a child. What does that tell you about Bessie and why the author compares it? Well, I think it means that she was determined to succeed. She'd always worked hard to get what she wanted, and she wanted education, so she would walk to school to get it. And just like she was a child, she walked to her flying school every day as an adult. There's a picture of the page. Bessie returned to America. She was surprised to see reporters waiting to ask her questions. Many people were interested in Bessie. They wanted to see her fly her planes. Bessie wanted to help other African Americans. She wanted children to know they could make their dreams come true. She decided to earn money for her own flying school by performing stunt flying shows. One sunny day, over 1,000 people paid to see Bessie perform in New York. The crowd cheered as Bessie climbed into the cockpit. She was wearing a leather coat, a helmet, goggles, and a confident smile. The plane slowly rolled down the field and took off. Bessie performed challenging flying stunts like figure eights and tailspins. The crowd went wild. Bessie performed her stunts in Texas, Tennessee, and Illinois. She flew over fields like the one she picked cotton in as a child. Crowds of people were below her, waving and cheering. She had earned the title Brave Bessie. Years later, her dream of opening a school finally came true. The Bessie Coleman Aero Club taught African American people how to fly. Thanks to Bessie, their dreams were taking flight too. The question in your book is, what happened last in the selection? Well, to find out what happened last, we go to the last page and maybe look at the last paragraph. What was the last thing that happened in the selection? Did you find it? What happened? If you said that the school opened, the Bessie Coleman Aero Club school opened to teach African American people how to fly, you were right. This is the timeline of Bessie Coleman's life. Do you remember in the story about Cesar Chavez, there was also a timeline? Okay, so let's take a look. 1892, Bessie was born on January 26 in Atlanta, Texas. 1910, Bessie enrolls in college. 1915, Bessie moves to Chicago, Illinois. 1920, Bessie sails to France in the SS Imperator. 1921, on June 15th, Bessie obtains her pilot's license in France. 1922, Bessie performs her first air show in New York. 1925, Bessie earns the name Brave Bessie. 1926, Bessie Coleman dies in Jacksonville, Florida, and 1929, the Bessie Coleman Aero Club opens. Oh, boys and girls, that's your story about Brave Bessie. It's a true story or a biography about a person who really lived. I hope you enjoyed learning about Bessie and what she did to help other African Americans. Now remember, this is your story for the selection test that is, let me see on the calendar. Your selection test is Friday. So today is Tuesday. Here's the calendar. Today's Tuesday, and your selection test is Friday. Okay, so you want to, if you have your book, you want to read that story several times. Have your family ask you the 5 questions of the 5W questions of who, what, when, where, and why. And also practice your sequencing like we did with the story. What happened first? What happened next? Then what happened? And last. So practice your skills, read your story, and good luck on your selection test on Friday. Bye.